One thing is that migration tool that I showed you, Google's one, is not amazing. I would say use it if you have to, but there's a better way. How do I convert past employees' email accounts and also retain their emails without using a license? Well, every business owner has this problem. If you have a bunch of staff in your Workspace account and staff will eventually move on for whatever reason, you need to do something with their emails. And you don't want to lose their data, but you want to do something smart and you don't want to have to keep paying for their license. So what can we do? Well, we've got a few different options on how to handle this inside our Workspace account. When I want to delete an account, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to my list of users, right? So my list of users, I'm going to go to my directory and then my user list here. And let's say I want to delete someone's user account because they've finished in the business now. Delete selected users. Okay, so I'll go to delete a user, and this is the screen that's going to pop up for me. It's going to give me some different options to delete the user. Now, what most people do is they'll just transfer the user's data in Google Drive and Calendar and whatnot to another user, and that's pretty straightforward. My recommendation would, of course, be to include stuff that's not shared with anybody else, just so you can capture all of the data that that user actually holds. But until recently, there was no way to save their emails. You would delete an account and their emails would disappear. And, obviously that's not a great option for most business owners. So Google said, okay, we're going to give you some tools to migrate data, right? And from there, okay, cool. We've now got a migration tool. So we can use Google's migration tool here. And so the process that Google suggests you do is to migrate that user's data using the migration tool here, place it in another mailbox. I'm going to tell you where my recommendation is in a second, and then go ahead and delete this user. Now, the problem is that most business owners will just migrate this to their own account, or in some cases, they'll migrate it to another staff member's account, which is also not a great idea because in both those cases, it makes a mess. The third thing that people usually do is they just rename the user account. So ISA is no longer part of the company, right? And so instead of actually deleting ISA's account, sometimes people would just rename the user to the new user's username, and that will retain all the old data. But basically what you're doing in that case is someone's got to sign into this old account, which is just like full of trash and full of someone else's history. And if they've got direct messages and those kind of things, the privacy implications are not great. So what do we do? Okay, we don't want to migrate it into another account because that's going to make a mess. We don't want to just delete the account because we want to keep the data. We don't want to leave it where it is because we don't want to pay for a license. Well, here's my method. Here's what I recommend. I recommend you pay for one license for an account and you call that an archive account. So you'll see here we've got our archive account, and this account basically becomes the dumping ground for all of your past employees' data. This is the one place where you're going to move all the data to. Now, the great thing about this is it only consumes one license, no matter how much data you put into that account. Of course, you've got things like data limits to think about, but for most people, if you've got 5 or 10 or 20 staff in your business, you're going to have plenty of data available unless you're a hardcore data user. So I create one account and I call it the archive account. And we set this up for all of our customers when we're doing migrations and cleanups of their user accounts in their business. And when I go to delete a user, what I'm going to do now is I'll hit the delete button and I'm going to choose to migrate their data, but I'm going to migrate their data into, I might have to do a custom date to get all of their data. And I just migrate everything. That's my policy is keep absolutely everything. I'm a pack rat. I go select users. Cool. And then I'm going to select the user. The first step is you migrate that person's email data, and then you go back to directory after you've checked that that was successful. And then you can delete the user, right? We're going to transfer all their other data to where? To the archive mailbox. Include everything, and then we're going to hit delete user. Poof. After the migration of all of their documents and calendar events, that user will be deleted. Now, that's a pretty straightforward process that works pretty well, except for one thing. And the one thing is that migration tool that I showed you, Google's one, is not amazing. I would say use it if you have to, but there's a better way. The better way is to actually use our service to migrate. The reason for that is that we use third-party tools. We've got a particular method that we use with a particular tool, which makes it very efficient, no downtime, very fast, no risk of data loss. My strong recommendation is if you have not yet considered our services, go chat to our team, consider signing up for Concierge because we just do this for free as part of the service. You let us know who wants to be migrated, we get them migrated. But the Google tool, if you don't mind troubleshooting some errors every now and again, my team tell me every now and again there's errors that you've got to kind of like work through, or it doesn't capture all of the data, so you've got to double check and make sure it's all come across. If you're confident with that, the second part of the process, which is this bit, is flawless. This bit's fine. It's just this Google migration tool is not amazing. But that's effectively the method. That's all you need to know. So you're going to migrate that data. You're going to put it into one archive account. And then once it's in that archive account, the user is deleted. You no longer have to pay for a license. So that's the answer. You don't get to retain their email itself, but you do retain all of their data. That's basically the end goal, retain all their data. And what then happens to the email address, you might ask? Well, you can do whatever you want with that email address. You might choose to set it up as an alias for another user, right? So if you want that email address to keep working, maybe there is a one-for-one replacement in the business and you want the replacement to start receiving that person's email from now forward. Well, we would do that by setting up an alias. Let's say Aldrin is going to take on that person's email. I would go into Aldrin's account here, and under user information, I would add an alternative email address, and I would type in Isa. It's not going to let me do that now because she's got an active email address, but I would add it as an alias to another user there. And then when there's an alias, it means that any new email sent to this email address is going to go to that person's mailbox. Or the other option is if you've got a shared mailbox, and we recommend setting up shared mailboxes like info at, or support at, or orders at, or help at yourcompany.com. That might be the best place to set up an alias for that email address so you can still receive the emails to somewhere.
If you need more help with what we've covered in this video, itGenius provides support services to businesses all over the world with problems just like this. Click the link below to get started.